The orbital trade station floated like a silver crown against the black sea of space. From a distance, it was a glimmering ring lit with thousands of windows, each one holding a different story. Inside, the station was alive with motion. Aliens, of all shapes, colors, and sizes, moving through its winding corridors. The air buzzed with countless voices, electronic announcements, and the distant hum of machinery. Jack Hanley tightened the last bolt on a maintenance panel, muttering under his breath. The communications relay for Docking Bay 7 had been acting up for weeks, and somehow the work order kept landing on his desk. He was a human engineer, good at his job, quick with his hands, and even quicker with sarcasm. But he preferred quiet, simple repairs. On the trade station, quiet rarely existed. He pulled himself out from under the panel, wiping grease from his fingers onto his jumpsuit. The repair corridor opened into a wide market hall where dozens of alien merchants had set up shop. Stalls overflowed with glowing fruit, mechanical parts, fabrics that shimmered like water, and tools Jack didn't recognize. The air smelled faintly of spice, metal, and something floral he couldn't name. Jack wasn't looking where he was going. He was already mentally checking his next repair order when he turned a corner and collided with someone. It was like bumping into soft light. The figure he hit stumbled but caught herself with graceful balance. She was tall, at least a head taller than him, and her skin had a faint iridescence, like sunlight reflected on a pearl. Her eyes were a bright liquid gold, and they seemed to look straight into him. "Sorry," Jack said quickly, stepping back. That's when it happened. The thought in his head, the unfiltered automatic one, rang out loud and clear in his own mind. Wow. She's stunning. The alien girl tilted her head. Her lips curved upward, and to Jack's complete confusion, she let out a soft laugh. Not mocking, but warm, like music played on glass chimes. Jack started, wondering why she was laughing. "You're thinking rather loudly," she said in a voice that was smooth and lightly accented. Her eyes sparkled as if she'd just heard the punchline of a private joke. Jack froze. "Wait. What?" "I'm Virelian," she explained. "We are telepaths. It is hard not to hear you." She placed a hand delicately over her mouth, though her eyes kept shining with amusement. "I expected offense or embarrassment from a human. Instead, your mind is honest." Jack felt heat rise in his face. You can hear everything I think?" "Only what you do not hide," she said with another soft laugh. "Do not worry. I find it refreshing." Refreshing? Jack wasn't sure if that was a compliment or if she was teasing him. The market noise seemed to fade as they stood there for a moment. Jack realized he was staring and quickly looked away, pretending to study a nearby stall selling small floating lights. She extended a hand. "I am Soraya." Jack hesitated, then took it. Her hand was cool and light in his grip, her skin smooth like polished stone. Jack Hanley. "You are a technician," she said, without a question in her tone. "How do you— Oh, right." "Mind reading," Jack said. Soraya's laugh was quick and bright. "Not entirely. You smell faintly of ozone and oil. And your clothing," she gestured at his jumpsuit, "is regulation station maintenance wear. Some things I can see without listening." Jack exhaled slowly, still thrown off by how casually she mentioned listening to his thoughts. "So, you're just walking around the station listening to random people's brains?" Soraya shook her head. "Virelians are trained to respect mental privacy. I do not listen unless I am invited, or unless the thought is very loud." Her golden eyes met his. "Yours was loud," Jack groaned. "Great. So you caught my first impression. Perfect." "Do not be embarrassed," she said, tilting her head again. "It is not the worst thought I have ever heard." Jack decided he'd better change the subject. "Well, it was nice to meet you, Soraya. I've got, work to get back to." She smiled, but there was something curious in her gaze, as if she were studying him like an engineer studying a strange new tool. "I will see you again, Jack Hanley," she said. Jack raised an eyebrow. "That a prediction?" "A certainty," she replied, and then she turned and melted into the crowd. The rest of Jack's day felt strangely off balance. He tried focusing on his work, fixing another relay, running diagnostics on a malfunctioning cargo loader. But his mind kept replaying that moment in the market. The way she had laughed instead of getting annoyed. The way she had said, "I will see you again," with absolute certainty. That evening, Jack stopped by the observation deck before heading to his quarters. The wide glass curve showed the endless stretch of space, dotted with distant stars. Cargo ships drifted toward the docking arms like slow-moving insects. He leaned on the railing, letting the sight calm him. Out here, far from Earth, humans were still newcomers to the galaxy. The station was a meeting place for dozens of species, each with their own customs, laws, and technology. Some welcomed humans, others didn't trust them yet. And then there were the Varelians. Jack had read about them in training. Beautiful, logical, deeply private telepaths who almost never let outsiders into their worlds. To meet one here, casually, in the market, was strange enough. To have one laugh at his thoughts instead of taking offense, well, that was something else entirely. He didn't hear her approach. One moment he was staring at the stars. The next, there was a reflection beside. Him in the glass, tall, slender, glowing faintly in the low light. "You think too much when you are alone," Soraya said. Jack almost jumped. Were you following me?" "No. I walk where I wish. You happen to be here." She leaned on the railing beside him. "Also, you are very easy to find. Your thoughts ripple in a way most minds do not." "Not sure if I should be flattered or worried," Jack muttered. Soraya's smile returned. "Perhaps both." They stood in silence for a while, watching a freighter drift past the station's edge. Jack felt oddly at ease. He was usually cautious around strangers, especially alien ones, but with Soraya, the silence wasn't uncomfortable. Finally, she said, "You do not hide yourself well. Most beings, when they meet a telepath, try to close their minds, to shield. You do not." "I guess I never learned how," Jack admitted. "Humans aren't exactly used to having our thoughts read. Yet you are here, speaking to me again." Jack chuckled. "Guess I'm curious?" Her golden eyes turned to him, sharp but not unkind. "Curiosity is good. It is how humans survived among greater powers." Jack frowned slightly. "Greater powers?" She looked back at the stars. "The galaxy is full of minds stronger, faster, or older than yours, yet humans endure. You adapt. It is why I find your mind interesting." Jack didn't know what to say to that. He settled for, "Well, I'm glad I could entertain you." Her smile widened just slightly. "You do more than entertain, Jack Hanley. You surprise." And before he could respond, she pushed away from the railing, her footsteps light and quiet. "Until next time," she said over her shoulder. Jack watched her walk away, the faint shimmer of her skin catching the dim light. He had the strange feeling that next time might come sooner than he thought. The next morning, Docking Bay 7 was a mess. Jack arrived with a mug of recycled station coffee in hand, only to find a crowd of angry traders shouting at a security officer. Cargo crates were scattered everywhere. Loading drones stood frozen, mid-task, and the bay doors flickered with warning lights. "What happened here?" Jack asked the officer. "Power grid for the docking systems failed." "Again," the officer grunted. "Half the ships can't unload. The other half are stuck waiting." Jack sighed. Another urgent repair. He set down his coffee and pulled out his diagnostic scanner. The grid's control panel was still active, but the readings made no sense. Power levels were bouncing like a faulty heart monitor. He was kneeling by the panel when he heard a voice behind him. "You are thinking, oh, great, another disaster to clean up." Jack didn't need to turn around to know who it was. "Soraya," he said, glancing over his shoulder. She stood there in the same calm way as before, dressed in light silver clothing that seemed to flow even without wind. "Am I wrong?" she asked. "Not exactly," Jack muttered, getting back to work. "I can help," she said. Jack looked up. "Help? You're... what? A diplomat? A merchant?" "I am neither," she said, stepping closer. "But I can follow your thinking patterns. If I understand what you intend before you act, I can assist." Jack raised an eyebrow. "You want to read my mind while I work?" "Yes," she said simply. "It will make the process faster." Jack hesitated. Normally, he worked alone. Fewer distractions, fewer people breathing down his neck, but she seemed serious and strangely confident. "Fine," he said finally, "but stay out of the way." Soraya crouched beside him, golden eyes watching closely. "I will only speak when it matters." The first 20 minutes were quiet, except for the occasional hiss of tools and the hum of machinery. Jack removed the access panel, exposing a web of glowing energy conduits. The power flow was stuttering, like something was interrupting the signal. Without thinking, Jack mentally mapped out his next step. Reroute the secondary line. Check for a short in the stabilizer coils. "Coils are fine," Soraya said suddenly. Jack jerked his head toward her. "What?" "I can see the part you were thinking about. I scanned it while you worked. No damage." Jack stared at her. "That's actually useful." Her lips curved in a small smile. "Told you." They kept going, falling into a rhythm. Jack's thoughts about each repair step came to her before he spoke, allowing her to check or adjust things in parallel. She wasn't a trained engineer, but her precise attention and quick reactions made her surprisingly effective. At one point, while Jack reached for a heavy coil assembly, he thought, "Man, I hope I don't drop this." "I will steady it," Soraya said instantly, catching the other side before he could even warn her. "How?" Jack started. "You think loudly when you are worried," she replied. Jack shook his head, almost smiling despite himself. "Guess that's a good thing." They worked for hours, and eventually, the grid began to stabilize. The flickering bay lights steadied into a steady blue glow. The cargo drones buzzed back to life, rolling toward crates with mechanical precision. Jack sat back on his heels. "That should do it." "You are welcome," Soraya said, her tone light. Jack smirked. Yeah, thanks." She stood, brushing non-existent dust from her sleeves. "Your mind is direct, efficient when focused." "That's one way to put it," Jack said, packing up his tools. "So what's a Varelian telepath doing hanging around an orbital trade station anyway? Doesn't seem like your kind of place." Soraya's eyes flickered briefly toward the bustling market beyond the bay. "I am observing." "Observing what?" "People," she said simply. "All kinds. Varelians value understanding before judgment." Jack tilted his head. "So you're studying us?" "Perhaps," she admitted. "Humans most of all." Jack raised an eyebrow. "Why?" "You are unpredictable," she said. "Most species follow patterns of logic or instinct. Humans do both, but not always when expected. It is fascinating." Jack chuckled. "I'm not sure if that's a compliment." "It is," she said, her voice completely serious. Before Jack could respond, the comm system in the docking bay crackled. "All maintenance teams, be advised, security reports unauthorized access to restricted systems. Keep an eye out for suspicious activity." Jack frowned. "That's never good." Soraya's head tilted slightly, her golden eyes narrowing. "Someone nearby is hiding something." Jack turned toward her. "You mean..." "Yes. I can." Feel a mind trying to shield itself, she said quietly. It is clumsy, like someone unused to such defenses. Where? She closed her eyes briefly. Near the cargo scanners. Jack followed her gaze. A tall, thin alien in dark clothing was moving quickly through the crowd, avoiding eye contact. He carried a small case tucked under one arm. Jack had never seen his species before, skin mottled blue and gray, long fingers, eyes like black marbles. Friend. Of yours? Jack asked. No, Soraya said, her voice tense. And his thoughts are dangerous. What kind of dangerous? She looked at him. Sabotage. Jack felt his stomach drop. You sure? I heard enough to know he intends harm to the station, she said, and he blames humans for something. I could not catch the details. Jack ran a hand over his face. Great. So we've got a telepathic warning but no proof. Soraya nodded. Virelian testimony will not be enough. The station's council demands physical evidence. Jack thought for a moment. If he's planning sabotage, he's got to act soon. Maybe we can catch him in the act. That is risky, she said. Jack gave a half smile. Yeah, well, I'm not big on sitting around waiting for bad things to happen. Her eyes softened slightly, as if she could hear the flicker of determination in his thoughts. You would risk yourself for this? Look, if he blows something up, a lot of people could get hurt. I'm not letting that happen. Soraya didn't respond right away. Then she said quietly, Your thoughts are loud when you care about something. Jack grabbed his toolkit and straightened up. Come on. Let's see if we can figure out what he's up to. They trailed the blue-gray alien through the winding corridors of the station. Soraya kept a few steps ahead, her head tilted slightly like she was listening to a far-off sound. He is thinking about timing, she murmured. He will wait until he is sure no one is watching. Any idea what his target is? Jack asked. Not yet. His mind is guarded now. They followed him into a quieter section of the station, maintenance tunnels and unused storage rooms. Jack's boots made soft thuds on the metal floor. The air smelled faintly of ozone. Finally, the alien ducked into a storage bay. Jack and Soraya stopped outside the door. He is opening his case, Soraya whispered. Something mechanical. Jack peered around the doorway. He caught a glimpse of the alien kneeling beside a power conduit, connecting wires from his case into the panel. Sabotage confirmed, Jack muttered. They needed a plan. If Jack charged in, the alien could trigger whatever device he had. But if they waited too long, it might be too late. Soraya stepped closer. I can distract him. Make him believe someone is coming from the other side. You can do that? I can project a thought into his mind. A false impression. Jack thought fast. Do it. When he's distracted, I'll grab the device. She closed her eyes briefly, focusing. A moment later, the alien jerked his head toward the far side of the room, looking startled. Jack seized the moment, rushing in and yanking the devices. Power connection free. The alien hissed and tried to grab him, but Jack swung his toolkit hard into the side of the alien's arm. The case clattered to the floor, spilling wires and a small energy core. A security officer's voice rang out from behind them. Freeze! Within moments, more officers arrived, weapons drawn. The alien was restrained and the device confiscated. Later, in the security office, Jack sat across from Soraya. She looked perfectly composed while Jack was still catching his breath. They'll probably credit security for the arrest, Jack said. I do not care about credit, Soraya replied. The station is safe. Jack looked at her. No. You didn't have to help me. I wanted to, she said simply. Your determination was loud, and it matched my own. Jack chuckled. Guess we make a good team. Her golden eyes softened. Perhaps. The next few days on the station were calmer, at least on the surface. Cargo moved in and out, traders argued over prices, and the loud hum of the docking systems was back to normal. To most people, the sabotage attempt was just another security incident that was quickly handled. For Jack, though, it wasn't over. The image of that blue-gray alien kneeling beside the conduit stuck in his mind. The look in those black marble eyes wasn't just anger. It was personal. And the device they'd recovered, it was far too advanced for a lone troublemaker. Something about it bothered him. The power core was small but potent. The kind of tech you didn't just buy at a market stall. Someone had supplied it, and that meant someone else might be waiting for another chance. Jack was in the maintenance workshop, running tests on a cargo arms servo motors, when Soraya appeared in the doorway. "You are thinking about the sabotage again," she said without preamble. Jack looked up from his work. "Can you maybe not sneak into my brain first thing in the morning?" I did not have to listen. "Your thoughts are heavy today," she replied, stepping inside. Jack put down his tools. "Yeah, I'm thinking about it. That guy didn't seem like a lone wolf. Someone had to give him that tech." Soraya's golden eyes narrowed slightly. "I have heard whispers, minds brushing against mine with intent. Not openly hostile, but watching." Jack frowned. "Watching you?" "Watching us," she corrected. "Since the sabotage, we are connected in the eyes of certain people." "Great," Jack muttered. "So now I've got mysterious alien attention on me." "Not only you," Soraya said. "Humans in general. I think you were meant to be a scapegoat." Before Jack could respond, the workshop door slid open and a station security officer stepped in. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with the bored look of someone used to routine patrols. "Hanley," the officer said, "Station Council wants to see you, now." Jack blinked. Why?" "They didn't say. Just that it's about the sabotage case." Soraya glanced at Jack. "I will come." The officer gave her a brief look. "Council requested the human only." "Then they will have to adjust their request," Soraya said evenly. "Where he goes, I go." Jack almost smiled. She said it with such certainty that the officer didn't even argue. He just shrugged and motioned for them to follow. The station council chamber was a circular room with tiered seating, filled with representatives of different species. The air felt heavy with formality. Jack had only been in here once before to fix a faulty comm screen. Being summoned as a guest, or possibly a suspect, was new. An Andrelian counselor with skin like green crystal spoke first. "Jack Hanley, human technician. You were involved in preventing sabotage to the docking bay." "Yes," Jack said. "Carefully. Your companion," the counselor glanced at Soraya, "provided information via telepathy. Such information, while useful, is not admissible in station records." "I understand," Jack said, though it made his jaw tighten. They'd risked their necks to stop that device, and now it was just background noise in the official version. The counselor continued, "We have reason to believe the attempt was part of a larger plan to disrupt human trade presence here. We advise caution." "Advise?" Jack repeated. "You're not doing anything about it?" "We will increase patrols," the counselor said, "but without evidence of further attempts, we cannot act against any group." Jack's temper flared, but before he could say anything, Soraya's voice brushed into his mind. "Do not argue here. It will not help." Jack clenched his teeth, forcing himself to stay quiet. "Fine," he said aloud. "If you're not going to dig deeper, I will." A ripple of disapproval moved through the council chamber. The crystal-skinned counselor's eyes glinted. "Be careful, human. Curiosity in the wrong places can be dangerous." Back in the corridor outside, Jack let out a frustrated breath. So that's it. They just advise caution and let whoever's behind this try again. They fear conflict, Soraya said. If they accuse the wrong group, it could cause trade collapse. Yeah, well, I fear explosions, Jack muttered. Soraya's lips curved in a faint smile. Then perhaps we should find the truth before another device is placed. Jack gave her a sideways look. You're really in this with me? She tilted her head. Your determination is infectious. They started quietly asking questions. In the market district, Jack spoke to repair crews, cargo loaders, and shopkeepers he trusted. Soraya listened not only to their words, but to the quick flashes of thought they tried to hide. Most people knew nothing. But in the afternoon, Soraya paused outside a small stall selling refurbished ship parts. The merchant inside, she murmured. His mind is anxious. And when he saw you, he thought of the sabotage. Jack stepped inside. The merchant, a stocky, pale-skinned alien with 3 eyes, gave him a tight smile. Can I help you, human? Looking for parts, Jack said, casually. Specifically, energy cores like the one security found last week. The merchant's smile twitched. Illegal. I wouldn't touch those. Soraya's voice brushed Jack's thoughts. He is lying. Jack nodded slowly. Right. Well, if you were touching them, you'd probably keep them hidden somewhere close, yeah? The merchant's eyes narrowed. You should leave. Jack leaned in slightly. Or maybe I should tell station security to take a closer look at your back room. The merchant stared at him for a long moment. Then his shoulders slumped. Fine. I had a buyer last week. Paid well for a shipment of high-density cores. Didn't say what for, but I guessed. Who? Jack asked. Didn't give a name. Wore a dark cloak, kept their hood up. Paid in rare alloys. Where'd the meeting happen? Service corridor behind Dock 9, late at night. When they left the stall, Jack said, Looks like we've got our lead. Yes, Soraya said, but be careful. Whoever bought those cores is not working alone. Jack gave her a determined smile. Then we make them slip up. That night, they hid in the shadows of the service corridor behind Dock 9. The air was cooler here, with a faint metallic tang. Cargo containers sat stacked high against the walls, making narrow pathways. They waited. Jack crouched behind a container, scanning the corridor. Soraya stood still beside him, her eyes half closed, as if she was listening for something only she could hear. Then she whispered, 2 minds approaching. Focused. One is shielding. Poorly. Footsteps echoed. 2 figures emerged from the far end. One tall and cloaked, the other shorter, carrying a case. Jack's heartbeat quickened. The cloaked one glanced around, then motioned for the shorter one to hand over the case. They are discussing delivery, Soraya murmured in his mind. This is not the only shipment. Jack's thoughts sharpened. We need to catch them with the evidence. She nodded slightly, having caught the thought, and moved silently toward the far side to block their escape. Jack stepped out into the open. Evening, he said, voice casual. The shorter figure froze. The tall one didn't. Instead, the cloaked alien reached for a device on their belt. Soraya's voice shot into Jack's mind. It will trigger the core. Move! Jack lunged forward, knocking the alien's hand aside just as Soraya appeared behind them. Her movement was swift and precise, grabbing the case before the shorter figure could react. The tall one hissed and tried to shove Jack away, but he held on, twisting their arm. The shorter figure bolted down the corridor, only to run straight into Soraya. Within moments, both were restrained with improvised cable ties from Jack's toolkit. Station security arrived. Minutes later, alerted by the comm beacon Jack had triggered during the fight. The case was opened, revealing 3 more energy cores identical to the sabotage device's power source. The security chief, a short but commanding insectoid, clicked his mandibles. Good work. This is the evidence the council needed. Jack glanced at Soraya, who gave the faintest smile. Glad to help, he said. Later, Back on the observation deck, Jack leaned on the railing, watching small ships leave the station. That could have gone wrong in about 100 different ways. He said. Yes, Soraya agreed, but it did not. Jack chuckled. You know, I think we're making a habit of stopping trouble. Soraya's golden eyes met his. Perhaps trouble is making a habit of finding you. Jack smirked. Maybe. But if it does, I'm glad. You're around to hear my thoughts before I say something stupid. She laughed softly, that musical sound he was starting to recognize. Then I will stay close, Jack Hanley, until your thoughts are no longer interesting. Jack grinned. So, forever? She didn't answer, just turned to look back at the stars. Jack had expected things to quiet down after they caught the cloaked buyer. He was wrong. 2 days later, the station was buzzing with tension. Security patrols doubled. Cargo inspections took twice as long, and whispers of more sabotage attempts traveled quickly through the market corridors. Most people avoided talking openly, but Soraya didn't need open words. She could feel the sharp edges of fear and suspicion in the thoughts around her. Jack noticed it too, though for him, it was in the way people's eyes followed him. Some were curious, others doubtful. Humans had made both friends and enemies in this part of the galaxy, and right now, someone seemed determined to push the enemy side. Jack was in the docking control room when Soraya appeared without a sound. She didn't need clearance, codes, or a guard escort. People just seemed to step out of her way. You're not here to help me reprogram docking sequences, are you? Jack asked, not looking up from the console. No, she said. I came to warn you. Jack's fingers paused over the keys. That's never a good start. Someone is watching the control systems, Soraya said. Their mind is distant, but I can feel their focus, sharp, like a needle. They are searching for a weakness. Any idea who? Jack asked. No. Face. Just cold intent. Jack exhaled slowly. So this isn't over. No, she agreed. Before they could say more, a call came over the station comms. Security alert. Energy fluctuation detected in Sector 12 maintenance ring. All available engineers respond. Jack was already grabbing his toolkit. Sector 12's power feeds connect straight to life support for half the lower decks. If those go out, many will die, Soraya finished for him. Her voice carried no drama, only fact. They moved quickly, weaving through crowded corridors, toward the maintenance ring. The air smelled faintly of coolant and warm metal. Down here, there were no shops or bright signs, just pipes, cables, and the steady thrum of the station's heart. When they reached the Sector 12 panel, Jack's stomach tightened. The main conduit cover was open, wires spilling out like cut veins. The stabilizer unit had been pulled halfway free. Someone had been here. Recently, Jack dropped to one knee, scanning the unit. Someone tried to reroute power flow. Badly. If they'd finished, the overload would have fried the entire sector. Soraya crouched beside him. I can sense a mind nearby. They are nervous and hiding. Jack's eyes swept the dim corridor. Where? She tilted her head toward a stack of maintenance crates. Jack stood slowly, pretending to study his scanner, and then took a step toward the crates. A figure suddenly bolted from behind them. Jack lunged, but the saboteur was fast, small, wiry, and wearing a gray maintenance uniform. They sprinted toward the far exit. Left passage! They will try to lose you in the coolant tunnels, Soraya's voice rang in Jack's mind. Jack didn't question how she knew. He just turned hard left, cutting the saboteur off. They skidded to a stop, but Soraya was already behind them, her presence silent and unshakable. The saboteur looked from Jack to Soraya, panic flashing in their eyes. Jack stepped closer. You're going to tell us who sent you? They shook their head, lips pressed tight. Soraya's voice was calm. Your mind already screams the answer. You simply do not want to admit it. The saboteur's eyes flickered with fear. Jack knew Soraya was right. Whoever they worked for wasn't just paying them. It was someone they feared more than getting caught. They secured the saboteur and called security to take them away. But as they watched the officers lead the figure off, Jack felt a hollow weight in his chest. "That's the third time," Jack said. "3 different people, 3 different attacks, but they're connected." "Yes," Soraya said softly. "And the one behind it still hides." Jack frowned. "They're testing us, seeing how fast we can respond, how well we can work together." "Perhaps they are deciding how dangerous we are," Soraya said. That thought stayed with Jack as they headed toward the station's central hub. He kept glancing at Soraya, wondering how much more she was sensing than she let on. Finally, he said, "You ever think this is all about you?" She arched an eyebrow. "Me? You're a telepath. You've stopped 2 sabotage attempts. You've been walking around with me, a human engineer who apparently thinks loudly. Maybe someone's not just trying to hurt humans. They're trying to see what happens when a human and a Varelian team up." Soraya was silent for a moment, her golden eyes thoughtful. "That would be unusual. Most would not believe such a team could exist." "Well," Jack said, "guess we're proving them wrong." The next day, Jack's theory was tested. A routine cargo inspection turned into chaos when one of the larger freighters reported a minor systems failure in its engine bay. Jack and Soraya were called in to assist because the ship's crew insisted they didn't trust station security. The freighter was old, patched together from mismatched parts. The air inside was heavy with engine grease and the faint smell of burnt circuitry. Jack ran diagnostics while Soraya stood nearby, scanning the crew members who lingered in the bay. "One of them is waiting," she murmured. "Waiting for what?" Jack asked. "A signal. A moment." That was all the warning Jack got before one of the crew, a tall, broad alien with dark green skin, suddenly pulled a small device from his belt and slammed it against the wall near the fuel lines. Jack didn't have time to think. He lunged, grabbing the alien's arm. The device slipped from their grip, clattering across the floor. "It is on a timer!" Soraya's thought hit Jack's mind like a sharp bell. Jack dove for the device, flipping it over. The countdown was already at 8 seconds. He ripped the back open, scanning the wiring. 2 blue leads, 1 red, 1 black. "Red first," Soraya's voice said. Jack didn't question her. He yanked the red wire free, then the black. The countdown froze at 3 seconds. He let out a shaky breath. "Okay, that was close." Security took the saboteur into custody, but Jack could see it in Soraya's eyes. They both knew the attacks were escalating. That evening, they met in a quiet corner of the observation deck. Below them, the planet the station orbited was a swirl of blues and greens, its atmosphere glowing faintly in the dark. "They're getting bolder," Jack said. "First the docking bay, then life support, now fuel lines." "Yes," Soraya said, "and each time we stopped them. Perhaps that was the point." Jack frowned. "You think they wanted us to stop them? Perhaps they are measuring our responses, our speed, our trust in one another." Jack leaned back against the railing. "So we're part of some twisted test." Soraya's eyes stayed on the stars. "If so, then we should prepare for the final question." The final question came sooner than Jack expected. The next morning, the entire station shook. Alarms blared through every corridor. "Emergency! Breach detected in the central power core. All personnel evacuate." Jack's heart dropped. The power core wasn't just the station's engine, it fed every system, from gravity to oxygen. If it failed, the whole place would go dark and thousands would die. He and Soraya didn't even speak. They ran. The power core chamber was chaos. Engineers shouted orders, consoles sparked, and the deep thrumming hum of the core was faltering. A section of the maintenance platform had collapsed, leaving a gaping gap above the cores swirling. Energy field. Jack scanned the damage. Someone planted explosives on the support struts. Half the stabilizers are gone. Soraya's gaze swept the room. The saboteur is still here. Where? Her eyes locked on a figure moving toward the emergency hatch. There! Jack ran, catching up just as the figure, a thin alien with silver-scaled skin, reached for the hatch controls. They spun, pulling a knife-like tool, but Jack ducked, the swipe, and tackled them. Soraya was beside him in an instant, her hand gripping the saboteur's wrist. Her voice was sharp in Jack's mind. "Fix the stabilizers. I will hold them." Jack scrambled to the nearest console, fingers flying. The damage was worse than he thought. 3 stabilizers offline, 2 more at critical levels. He rerouted power, bypassed the damaged circuits, and prayed the whole thing wouldn't blow before he finished. Left panel, override switch. Soraya's thought cut through the noise. Jack yanked the switch. The core's hum deepened, then steadied. The danger lights faded from red to amber. He slumped against the console, breathing hard. That was too close. Soraya's grip on. The saboteur didn't falter until security arrived. When it was finally over, Jack and Soraya stood together on the catwalk, looking down at the restored core. "That had to be the last one," Jack said. "Nobody's going to try again after this." Soraya's expression was unreadable. Perhaps. Or perhaps the one behind them has decided we have passed their test. Jack gave her a sideways glance. "And if we did?" Her golden eyes met his. "Then they may come to meet us." The station was finally calm. The bright neon lights of the docking bay reflected off the polished metal floors, and the constant sound of alarms that had filled the air for hours was now gone. The smell of hot metal and burned circuits still lingered, but it was fading with every passing minute. Crew members and officers walked around, talking in low voices, trying to make sense of what had happened. Jack stood near the large observation window, looking out at the endless dark of space. The planet below the station shone with soft blue clouds, slowly rotating in silence. He felt tired but also strangely light inside. The saboteur had been caught. The danger was over. Everyone was safe. Behind him, he heard the soft sound of footsteps. He didn't need to turn around to know who it was. Soraya walked up, her long flowing coat brushing against the floor, her alien features glowing faintly in the artificial light. Her eyes had that same curious spark he'd seen the first day they met. "You are thinking too loudly again," she said with a playful smile. Jack chuckled, shaking his head. "And here I thought I was just standing here quietly." "You humans," she replied. "Your thoughts run in circles. Even when your mouth is silent, your mind is shouting." He turned toward her. "I guess I still need to learn how to hide them." Soraya tilted her head, the way she always did when she found something amusing. "Why would you hide them? I like them. They are honest." Jack raised an eyebrow. "Even the stupid ones?" "Especially the stupid ones," she said, laughing softly. "They make you alive." Recognition and thanks not far from them, a group of station officers were handing out commendations. Captain Dross, a tall alien with silver skin and deep voice, called out their names. "Jack Hanley, Soraya Varel, step forward." The two of them walked up to the center of the room. Everyone was watching. "You saved this station today," the captain said. "And you did it with bravery, intelligence, and cooperation." He looked from Jack to Soraya. "You are both hereby commended for your actions." A round of applause filled the bay. Jack felt his face heat up, not from embarrassment, but from pride. Soraya simply nodded, her expression calm, though he could feel the quiet satisfaction in her mind. After the formalities, people returned to their duties. The chaos of the day was over, replaced by a quiet hum of normal life. The walk back Jack and Soraya left the docking bay together, walking slowly down the wide corridor. The lights above them cast long shadows on the floor. "So," Jack said after a few moments of silence, "what happens now for you?" "I return to my people," she replied. "There will be questions. Many questions. I will answer some of them and keep others to myself." Jack smirked. "Let me guess. You'll keep the parts about reading human thoughts during a station crisis." She gave a small laugh. "Exactly. It would be difficult to explain to them why I enjoyed it so much." They passed a large viewing dome where several travelers were looking out at the stars. Soraya stopped for a moment, gazing at the endless void. Jack stood beside her, the silence between them comfortable. Private thoughts. "You are wondering if we will meet again?" Soraya said suddenly. Jack blinked. "Was I that obvious?" "You do not need to be obvious," she replied, tapping her temple gently. "I can hear it." He looked down at the floor. "Yeah, I guess I am wondering. The galaxy is huge. People cross paths and never see each other again." "That is true," she admitted. "But sometimes paths cross more than once, and sometimes they were never separate to begin with." Jack looked at her in surprise. "Is that one of your alien sayings?" "It is one of mine," she said with a small smile. A small gift, as. They continued walking. Soraya reached into her coat and pulled out a small, smooth crystal that shimmered faintly under the corridor lights. "This is for you," she said, placing it in his palm. Jack turned it over in his hand. It was warm, almost as if it had been alive a moment ago. "What is it?" "It is a memory stone. My people use them to store feelings, not images or words, just emotions." Jack frowned slightly. "So, this has your emotions in it?" "Yes, from the first moment we met to right now." He looked at the crystal, then back at her. "Why give it to me?" "So you will know that I will not forget you," she said simply. "The farewell. The main docking gate for Varelian ships was just ahead." A tall silver arch marked the entrance. Several passengers were boarding, their strange voices mixing in the air. Soraya stopped at the gate and turned to face him. "This is where we part." Jack felt a strange tightness in his chest. "Yeah, I guess it is." "You are thinking of something to say that sounds important," she said, her lips curling slightly. "But you do not need to. I already know it." Jack sighed, smiling in defeat. "I guess there's no winning against a telepath." "There is no winning," she agreed softly. "But there is understanding." For a moment, they just looked at each other. Jack wanted to say more, but somehow it felt like she had already heard it all. The last thought. As she turned to leave, Jack felt one last question burning in his mind. Will she think of me? She stopped mid-step, turned her head slightly, and smiled without looking at him fully. "Yes, Jack, I will think of you." Then, for the first time, he heard something strange, a voice in his mind that was not his own. Her voice. Humans. Impossible. Unpredictable. And maybe exactly what I need. His eyes widened. "Did you just—" "Yes," she interrupted with a playful glint in her eyes. "I thought it was fair you hear at least one of my thoughts before I leave." She laughed, that same warm and bright laugh from the very first day, and then walked through the docking gate without looking back. After she left, Jack stood there for a long moment, the crystal warm in his hand, the sound of her laughter still echoing in his mind. Somehow the station felt bigger now. The stars outside seemed brighter. And though she was gone, he had the strange feeling that their paths weren't finished crossing. He walked away from the gate, his steps light. Somewhere deep inside, he was smiling, and he didn't even know why.